Hi guys, Kay Burley of Sky News was presented with a perfect analogy on her show by environmentalist Zoe Cohen from Just Stop Oil. Zoe sat on the floor during the interview to demonstrate how a small and simple act will garner attention and disrupt in a non-violent way. Just Stop Oil have been conducting a whole range of protests. In some ways it caused disruption to the public, in other ways it hits the organisations that are responsible for the disaster that's taken place. But have a listen to what Zoe had to say.
You see, unless people do things that are slightly transgressive, non-violently transgressive, people don't notice the difference. So if I do this, Kay, if I sit on the floor in the studio, it's a bit different, isn't it? And it might get noticed because I'm transgressing the rules of an interview. People don't normally do this in an interview, do they? But it's completely non-violent. I'm not threatening anyone, but it's a bit different. So it's an analogy, right? We have to do things that are different to make people notice. When you do things that are the same and don't get attention, they don't cause a national conversation. When we know that the people in power are basically funded by the oil lobbyists and the climate deniers, you know, the Tory party had 3.5 million quid last year alone. When we know this, we ordinary people are up against this huge power. Huge power. And the oil companies have been lying to us and been plying misinformation and spending billions on it for decades. Everyone knows that. It was in that documentary, Big Oil v. the World. Everyone knows that, right? So we just have to speak the truth. People in positions of power are knowingly pursuing new oil and gas licenses, knowing that millions and millions, if not hundreds of millions of people will die horrible deaths because of it. What do ordinary people do when you're faced with that level of evil? You must resist it. And if all we need to do is sit on the ground or walk slowly or just throw jigsaws or orange dust that doesn't harm anyone, that's incredibly peaceful. I guarantee you, in the months and years to come, interviews like this will shock people that it wasn't more obvious that we're in the most desperate times. And when we look back at these interviews, we'll all wish that we'd done everything that we possibly could.
I love this lady, and she's completely correct. And how long have I been saying about how we need to get money out of politics? How are ordinary people supposed to stand up? How can they stand up to the powers of, for example, and the resources that the fossil fuel industry have? A corrupting influence in politics, a corrupting influence in the media. You know, they have been funding politicians in order to continue to see subsidies being sent their way, in order to see subsidies not being sent to the renewable sector instead, to suppress promotion of public transport, to see the suppression of electric vehicles. That's changed somewhat, but it's certainly been the case over the last 20 years. How do ordinary people respond to that? Well, they can't rely on their politicians because many of the politicians are corrupted by this, or they're afraid. They're afraid to stand up to this sector, the fossil fuel industry. So what have people left? They have protest, and you have a Tory government trying to suppress protest as well. So people have to find a way around that. If you're not allowed to stand and block the flow of traffic, you have to walk slowly as a way around the protest restrictions. People will spray paint that can be easily washed off, but it's about attracting attention to this issue. Now, we can argue whether some of the methods are right or not, but as Zoe pointed out here, if you do the normal protest, you're not going to get the attention that you need. You need to do something different. I understand the anger ordinary members of the public have, and we can maybe agree or disagree with that. But you have to do something, because Just Stop Oil don't have billions of dollars or pounds in their bank accounts to fight these types of campaigns against the fossil fuel industry. They don't have MPs or members of government in their pockets. They're fighting an uphill battle. They have the media against them sometimes. They have politicians against them sometimes. They even have members of the public against them sometimes. But we will look back at this period and say, why didn't people do more? Why were politicians either sitting on the fence or backing these oil sectors, these fossil fuel companies? Why were we ignoring the problem? Why weren't we investing more? Why weren't we pointing our finger at these companies and saying, you need to change, or you're going to be closed down or something? Why weren't we calling out the politicians? So a simple act of sitting down during an interview, a non-violent protest, this is all people have. And even the Tories are trying to take that away. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.